Hey, this is Brian Wright. I'm the coach here for Coach's Corner. And I just needed to talk about something because I'm getting a little bit frustrated by what we call MMA media. You have these people that have credentials, they have educations, they have backgrounds in journalism. And then you have other people that are in the media that are just people that have been fans of the sport, started pages, and organically evolved into what we would call a journalistic role. I guess I'm one of those people at this point. But you have this almost QAnon like fascination with reconstructing facts and figures as if you can look at YouTube or reels or stories and you can decipher meanings in a way that the average person can't. So, what we're calling reporting is really just repackaging of information to fit a narrative that was defined before they consumed anything. So, you have people that are right or left leaning that are taking everything they can, taking it out of context, creating context, and just forcing things to fit the world in which they see it. MMA is so much more simple than what it's being pushed by a lot of guys right now. Just because Dana and Trump are friends doesn't mean the UFC is this big, MAGA mouthpiece. I think ultimately both sides are using each other to get what they need to get done. And I don't think they're doing it with animosity. I think it's a handshake agreement. Dana and Trump go way back before politics. Now that Trump happens to be the president and the head of this, MAGA movement, and Dana is taking advantage of the relationship and he's using it to benefit the UFC, doesn't mean the UFC is a MAGA supporter or a right-leaning whatever. It doesn't mean that the fan base is right-leaning. It doesn't mean anything. The fan base got polled, and the UFC fans are roughly 55% conservative and 45% liberal, like the actual metrics that make up the country. So I think sport always will have the divide the same way that the population does. The media is bringing in more politics than the actual mechanisms of the sport. Sport organizations, most of them are owned by publicly traded companies that have fiduciary responsibilities to their investors. I highly doubt the UFC and the powers that be are going to align themselves with anything that is going to go against the bottom line. They've kind of proven that with every step they take. They will shake hands with whoever they have to get a show done, to get money in the bank, and to make the company work profitably so the stock value keeps going up and they keep having excess cash in the bank. Now, the people that they're shaking hands with today happens to be Trump's administration because Trump is in power. But at the same time, if we want to look at who's doing what, all the tech bros from Google and Meta and even the big liberal giant of Apple and to a degree Disney now, they are all shaking hands with the administration because they have a responsibility as well. And they also can see the cultural shifts. There was a cultural shift during COVID and during a liberal administration where they all went down kind of, I'll say, a woke agenda. But then they went right against it when the new administration came in, and they also saw following that one line was hurting their profits. So the narrative or the story that everybody's going to tell is constantly going to change with the corporations because their only job is to make money. They're not trying to change culture for the better. They're trying to follow the waves of culture or create culture for the profitability of their companies. And when you have a journalist that sits in the middle of all this and tries to act more conspiratorial than they need to, instead of just looking at who benefits to what's happening, we have a problem. So journalism, when you're going to school for it, they tell you basically you have to present the facts. Opinion, I guess, is journalism, but we're moving more into an influencer space with information than we are a journalistic space. You're supposed to be giving information to people in a way that they can process it and they can come to conclusions for themselves based off the facts. But now people are begging for you to fall in line with their line of thought. Luke Thomas is an unabashed liberal who has tremendous opinions about things, and he's constantly influencing his reporting with his own personal beliefs, which is fine. He sees information through a particular lens, and when it aligns with where he wants the world to be or the vision of the world that he has, he reports it, and he reports it in that way, so it's always leaning towards him and his opinion. Ariel Helwani is another one. This is a guy that lost his credentials. I believe he was working for ESPN at the time too, so he's a paid journalist, but he was very, very close to the source that he was covering from a business perspective. He loses his credentials because he scoops the company, and then he gets upset about it. And now all he does is complain, and every opportunity he has to complain about any aspect of the UFC or TKO or Endeavor or any of them, from WWE to the UFC, all of it. He just complains, complains, complains. He will always take the side of the adversary for that organization because he feels he was slighted. He's not presenting the facts in an honest, straightforward way. It's always, I told you so. I told you they weren't nice guys because they did this. Just put it out there. We don't really care about what your personal leaning on it is. Allow us to formulate our own opinions. Let us have our own experiences with these organizations, and let us digest the facts that you put out there, and let us connect the dots in a way that fits our needs and sits more in, say, the real world. Not the Andrew Tate BS real world university, but the actual real world where we all are free to think what we want to think. We don't have to be spoon-fed ideas and spoken to as if we're stupid and we can't come up with our own ideas. So MMA media in general, has to get off the high horse a little bit. And they have to trust the audience a little bit more. The audience is always going to come to its own conclusion. It's just the divisive nature of the time. The media is not helping. And as a fan of combat sports, I think it goes against, journalist A comes in and talks about fighter pay as if they care about the fighters. But then they turn around and they lean a particular way, and then they dump on the UFC, they dump on Dana. They say everything is just, trash now and all this stuff. But the people that you're saying that you're trying to defend are now having less opportunity because of what you're saying. You can have two things true at the same time. You can have the UFC at the top of the heap paying better than MMA has ever paid before, and that pay can still not be enough. So we need to celebrate the fact that we've arrived at the moment that we have, and then we have to negotiate towards where the next moment's going to be. And when we're constantly having these moments where we're adversarial, we're pretty much cutting our nose to spite our face, because the fighters are not going to align because there's too much chaos in all of the reporting and there's no trust at any level. The person that actually benefits from all this chaos is always the UFC. The media is going to say whatever he wants, and then whoever's in charge of the UFC or whoever's in front of the microphone representing them can always say, see, we're under attack, false news, fake this, just shut up, enjoy the fights, because they're giving them too much firepower. If it was me and I'm in charge and I'm trying to create change, I'm going to make an ally of the organization that I need to see do something. I'm not going to march in the street. I'm going to shake its hand. I'm going to have a conversation where it was, where it is, and where it's going. And I'm going to try and figure out a way that's going to benefit everyone, not just me in this clickbait moment when I'm trying to sell my podcast or I'm trying to sell my radio show or my TV show or get my commentary credentials up. Because if you don't have these shows, you don't have anything to report. And when all you're doing is fabricating drama, sure, you're making a living off of it, but you're no longer a journalist. You're now an influencer. You're a profiteer off of the drama that you're manufacturing at everyone else's expense. So if you want to be a journalist, be a journalist. Be an honest representation of the moment. Be a person who delivers real facts and figures without that push towards your own authority, I guess. Your authority is always found in the quality of your work. It is not found in the spotlight you shine on yourself. If you are that good, the light will shine on you. You don't need to hold it for yourself. Create the relationships, report the news, be an ambassador for journalism, not an influencer for social media, trying to just get clicks so that you can make a living being a fake journalist. My 13-year-old son started going with me when I go to DBX. I go to Dirty Boxing. I'm a commentator there. I don't hide that in any way. I'm a paid employee of Dirty Boxing. But my son goes. My son's not an employee. My son goes. He's 13 years old. We bring Alan, our camera guy, and they do interviews. And the crazy part about it is 99% of the time, the person being interviewed stops and goes, "How old are you? And why are you asking better questions than most of the media that I'm in front of?" That is kind of a ridiculous situation if you think about it. A child with no training, just a fan of the sport, does better homework, asks more human questions, and is giving the audience answers to things that they find more interesting, and more entertaining than people that are working for large organizations or have huge followings that they've developed over time, just sowing the seeds of discourse. People care about human stories. People care about people. They don't really care about the political leanings when we're talking about sport. We want to know how these people can do something that the vast majority of people are too scared to do. How do you do it? How do you handle the pressure? What's your day like? What is your life like being a person that does this? Why should I care about you? That's the beauty of sport. How do these individuals step on the pitcher's mound with all those people watching and throw the ball over the plate? How does the other guy take a swing at that ball that's coming at them at over 100 miles an hour and try and put it over the outfield? How do linemen line up on the line and go head to head over and over and over again with all the pressure, with all the money, everything you've ever wanted in life on the line? And then how do fighters step through the ropes, put the gloves on, and crack each other? How do MMA fighters get locked in a cage and go to war for our entertainment and then, wake up the next day and be husbands and fathers and productive human beings in society? How do all these wild and crazy people that are so athletically gifted get through life? That's what we want to know. What makes them different than the rest of us? What does it take to become the pinnacle of anything is what we're always caring to figure out. That's the real drama. That's the inspiration. That's the sport. That is sport. I had a guy hop on my YouTube channel and he put a comment because I said something about the fact that after talking to fighters at DBX, it was really amazing to hear their stories. And I was speaking to the fact that most of them, it's not violence, it's a dream. The dream is not to punch another human being in the face. The dream is to do this unique thing in a way that's going to provide for their family, provide for them, and allow them to elevate their circumstance in life. The person commented and said they wouldn't step in the ring if they didn't love violence. And I had to put the brakes on that conversation. Because these are men that may enjoy the violence to a degree. These are men that are capable of it. They're in the business of violence, but I wouldn't necessarily call them violent men. These are people with dreams and aspirations, and they just happen to be combat sports athletes. Combat sports is not the easiest path to take. The vast majority of these athletes that I come across have really rough childhoods. They have rough home lives. A lot of the men are fathers. A lot of the women are aspiring mothers. They're family people that are trying to use combat sports to build a life that they felt they didn't have when they were younger. They want to create something for the next generation of their family. That's the majority of them. And that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to speak about. That's what we need to be inspired by. All the other stuff is just nonsense. So the political activists pretending to be sports journalists, I wish we would pay less attention to them. The people that are disgruntled former employees of something that do nothing but take a dump on the thing that's paying these people that are just trying to do better for their next generation. Yeah, maybe we have to look at ourselves and say, why are we following them? And just because your boss at your job doesn't pay you well, doesn't mean you have solidarity with an MMA fighter who is negotiating their next contract. They're in a different situation than you are, and look at it objectively instead of projecting your insecurities on them. So that's my point of view. I'm Brian Wright. This is the Coach's Corner. And when I say all these things, it's because ultimately the one thing I care about most is the athletes, their opportunities, and the sport to grow so that these athletes can fulfill their dreams. They can follow through with their aspirations, and they can provide for the next generation of their family in a way that the previous one was unable to. That is what this is about. Inspiring all of us to look at how we live and saying, okay, if they can do it, we can at least try to do the hard things that we're faced with on a daily basis. So yeah, sport and fighting, highly inspirational, highly motivational. It's defined my life in every way. My children are involved in it now, and they are finding the courage to live life the way they choose because of it all. And yeah, strip away the politics, forget about it. Tune into the White House card, put your politics aside, forget about the nonsense that's being sold to get likes and clicks, and put the likes and clicks on these athletes. Put more money in their pockets by giving them the authority and the influence that your audience brings them. So, yeah. All right. My rant is over. I'm Brian Wright. This is the Coach's Corner. Peace.